All right, so we're going to apply what we know about equilateral and isosceles triangles, and we're going to learn to set them up into equations. So if I'm looking at this very first one on the left, I look at the sides, they're all the same. So that means that this is an equilateral triangle. Then, if all of the sides are the same, that means all the angles are also the same. So this would be 3x, this would be 3x. So let's try to identify what x has to equal. So applying our triangle sum theorem, we know that all the angles in a triangle equal 180. Then adding up all of my variables, I have 3x plus 3x plus 3x. That's 9x. Then dividing both sides by 9, x is equal to 20. 20 degrees. Okay? So you might also be able to identify too, you might realize, hey, it's an equilateral triangle. That means all the angles are 60. So you could have set up just one of these angles as 3x equals 60 and found it the exact same way. Okay, next one, we look at on the right side, you have a triangle, you know, one side's 12, the other side you're looking for, and then the only thing else that they give us is that the angles. And by this notation, like this one line, it's meaning that all these angles are the same. So all these angles are 60 degrees, 180 divided by 3. So if all the angles are the same, that means all the sides are the same. So if the right side is 12, then x has to also be equal to 12. This one would also be equal to 12. So on this next problem, we got to find out the value of x, and we got to find out the value of y. So we look at this, we got kind of two triangles right next to each other. So you got to go at it bit by bit. We kind of fill in the sides and maybe the angles of what we know. So if I'm looking at this, x plus 1, okay, usually we go for x. I try to identify this triangle LNM down here. And I see I have two angles that are the same, so I know that this is isosceles. So if this is isosceles, that means this side is equal to this side. So I really don't have much more info right now. I only know that this is x plus 1. So let's try to figure out, let's look at this other triangle. So this triangle over here, okay? So I see all the angles are the same, and so that should be kind of a radar ping in your mind that this is equilateral. So if all the angles are the same, then all the sides are the same. So if this side over here is 4, then that means this side where y is 4, and this side over here that touches the isosceles triangle is also 4. So fill in what we know y is equal to 4. And then to figure out what x is now, we have enough info. So we know that isosceles, this side is equal to this side. So all I do is I create an equation like that, x plus 1 equals 4. So I would subtract 1 from both sides. I figure out x equal to 3. Okay, so this one looks very similar to the other in a lot of regards it is, but there's something different about this one. So I still got to look for x and I still got to look for y. The only difference is now x is an angle measure. So if I'm looking at identifying it, this kind of looks like an isosceles triangle over here on the right, but I'm not quite sure. So I look at this one over here on the left and I say, oh yeah, that's definitely an equilateral. All the angles are the same. All the angles are 60 degrees. So if it's equilateral, that means this side length is also 40. So then I see that if these sides are the same, I'm dealing with an isosceles triangle. Okay, but how do I find this x? And it has to do with our little situation over here. Okay, we have a 60-degree angle, and if you remember, we have another angle right next to it, and they make a straight line. They make a linear pair. So, linear pairs, reviewing, are two angles that equal 180. So this is 60 degrees. That means this angle right here has to equal 120. Okay, so finding x now. I have enough info to solve for x, believe it or not. So if I know that this one's 120 and they're isosceles, that means this is also the same measure. So applying that, I have x plus 120 equaling 180. Combining like terms gets us 2x plus 120. Subtracting 120 from both sides leaves us with 2x is equal to 60. So once I divide both sides by 2, I see that x has to equal 30 degrees. So just remember, if two of your sides are the same, that means that isosceles also have two angles that are the exact same. So let's go ahead and solve for y. We know that this is an equilateral triangle. We have 8 times some number, and we know that it needs to equal 40. So if you divide both sides by 8, you figure out y is equal to 5.